Perfect. Good evening, everybody. Full room. 2 last seats for last people that can show up. So I am Alejandro Fernandez. I'm the president of the Holt Alumni San Francisco chapter, and we organize events like this from time to time. Last month we had an event for alumni only who were in campus. We had a guest speaker, and then we had a networking, space for us. And this time we're doing an alumni and current students mixer, which you can see is full. Plenty of the students are over here, but some of the folks that you are seeing sitting next to you are also alumni here. So first thing is, we are completely open to talk to students, and feel free to reach out to us, feel free to reach out to me and the chapter in general. We have 2 classes that graduated from this campus, and we have other folks that graduated from other campuses years before, like me, 2009 Boston campus. I work in the Bay Area, so there are folks that you can talk to about their experiences. I know it's hard to reach out to them, but give it a try. I'm very glad to have Professor Michael Mary here. I haven't had the opportunity to be part of any of his classes.
I haven't heard,
but I've heard it's very entertaining and learning experience. So I'm going to introduce Mike briefly, just for alumni around here that don't know him. Mike serves as Global Discipline Lead for Entrepreneurship and Innovation across all Holt campuses, and has been a 5-time venture capitalist-backed serial entrepreneur. 2 of the startups actually made their IPO on the NASDAQ, quite successful. He's been angel investor, board director, and mentor in leading venture capital programs such as TechStars, Y Combinator, Beta Spring, Founders Institute, and Seed Camp Europe. There are plenty other things to talk about. Mike is a great.
We don't need to, though.
We're good. But we don't need to, exactly. So we're ready to get into the topic today, which is, state of the market. In this time is going to be Silicon Valley. Let's talk about it. He has a lot of things to talk about, so let me welcome in Mike.
Hey, good to see some of my former students here as well. So it's great to see some of you back. Great to get alumni and current students together. So I want to make this an interactive event, right? I've got a lot of slides. I'm going to do a little show of hands. Who are all the alumni in the room? First of all, where are all my alumni? Okay. And let me then ask you, how many of the alumni have landed a gig that they're very happy with right now? They love what they're doing. Okay. What are some of the things that you guys are doing? Alberto, what are you doing?
I'm a SEO analyst and product development for a digital marketing agency.
Awesome. That's great. How about you?
I do advertising.
Okay.
Nearby,
Okay.
by the Transamerica.
Cool.
Tons of fun. My biggest client is Comcast.
Okay.
And I'm an account executive.
Okay, so what are you guys doing here?
It's really nearby.
Okay. If I get boring, you can go. I won't be offended, I promise you, okay? What about other people, other alumni that have landed a job that was either their dream job or pretty close to their dream job already? Just 2? Oh, yeah, please.
Construction lending for Wells Fargo.
Okay, construction lending. How's the state of the construction lending market right now?
Well, actually, it's more renovation stuff that I'm doing for homes, so it's actually picking up quite a lot.
Okay. And for the rest of the alumni, what are some of the industries that you would like to find your way into soon? What part of the economy here would be most interesting to you? Please raise your hand. Yeah, please.
The video game industry?
Video game, okay. And have you been interviewing in it for a while?
I don't really have a job, and I'm pretty happy at it, but it's
Okay.
like the dream job.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you. Others, other people, other alumni, what other industries or subsectors are you looking at? Just want to make sure I cover all the right stuff.
Education, online education.
Online education. Okay, we're going to talk about education technology for sure. So you're thinking that, Alberto, you would want to apply your digital marketing skills in the online education space?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Got to introduce you to Jeff Bledsoe, and we're running an education tech TEDx event on the 27th of April here. So it's all about innovation in global education, so you may want to sign up for that. At the Palace of Fine Arts, right? Yeah. Other industries, other places. Anybody else? No? How about you, officer?
Oh, I'm the lead janitor at McDonald's.
Yeah, okay.
MBA.
Okay.
Now we get genetic biotech.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's great.
And how's it going so far, okay?
That's good.
Yeah?
Lunch, breakfast.
All right. All right, so now let me ask my students in the room. Different industries. Who wants to be in sort of the classic IT software category? How many people want to kind of go into that classic Silicon Valley category? Okay. My MSc man, Javier. Okay. Yeah. How about in mobile? Who wants to be sort of in the more mobile-oriented space? A few of you. How about medical technology? Who wants to go into medical technology? Okay. Pharma. And I'm going to distinguish from medical from pharma. Clean tech. Okay. What am I missing? So, shout out. What are some of the things I didn't mention?
Banking.
Banking. How many people want to go into banking? Banking and finance. Okay. Karthik, come on. You should have retired a long time ago. All right, so fintech. Okay. Consulting. How many consulting advocates? Oh my God, yes. Okay. All right. So what other categories? Marketing. Okay. Classic marketing. Okay.
How about retail?
Retail. Okay. Online ed. Okay. We're going to cover a lot of those. Yeah, Pratyush? Media and entertainment. Media and entertainment. You want to go into Hollywood? Yeah. So what would you like to do in media entertainment? More technology? Because you're a tech guy. Okay, but you want to be in that part of the world. All right, cool. All right, so you're all dreaming about something, right? And the whole point of coming to Silicon Valley is it's a place of very big dreams, right? So, are there any specific questions that I should keep in mind tonight while we have this chat? Anything that you really want to know? What are some of the big questions about the Bay Area job market? Roman?
Salaries.
Salaries. Right to the point. Okay, good. All right. What else? So salaries. Okay. Okay. What else?
Expected rate of international hires when visa issues are involved, so when you don't have work permit.
Yes, I'm not an expert, and the last thing I would want to do is misinform you on that. That's a very sophisticated specialty. I'd rather not, because I don't want to mislead anybody, okay? Yeah.
Do they are really interested in technology issues? Do they really have interest in my profile rather than someone who has really expertise in specific
okay. So, but you're not at MIT.
MBA.
MBA, okay. All right. All right. So, you're loving that finance class, aren't you? It's really got you cracked up, huh? All right. So, we're talking about sort of the right fit, huh? Right fit profile. Okay. Yes, Andrew.
Yeah, apart from the classic big management consulting firms, the other some insight on the boutique firms, maybe more.
And I've got a number of slides on that on boutiques. So I'm going to ask Alejandro to talk about his firm because his firm is very interesting. Okay, cool. So I have about 5 or 6 slides on that, a little bit further back in the deck. Cool. How about over here? Yeah.
Knowing what they know now, what did they find the most useful and the most not useful aspects of the HALT MBA program?
No, you're not going to ask me. You're going to ask the alumni.
I'm asking the alumni.
All right, we're going to ask the alumni then. Okay, that's great. But we're going to put that off to the side. Okay, so that's great though. So we're going to maybe have a little give and take with the HALT alum. Okay, that's great. And that may be more appropriate in the, maybe we'll have a little bit of that. But I'll defer to you, Alejandro. How do you want to, how do you want to handle that? Yeah. HR. So the HR function. The HR function, okay. I'm going to talk about some HR software companies, okay, that I think will be, that should be of interest to you. Okay, thank you, Samira. Yes, Ravis and then Lucas.
I might hear about startups and how to find them over guys.
All right, we're going to definitely talk about that, all right? And obviously this weekend is really about that, okay? And when I say this weekend, we have this big boot camp this weekend. But how many of you here want to find technical guys, like Ravis just said, or technical women to help you build a startup? Okay, this side of the room. All right, all right, cool. And sort of, tech columns, right? All right, Lucas.
The main competence that the hired people are looking for.
Okay, but you're going to be more specific. So in your case, in what industry?
Well, okay.
Okay, sorry.
I'm more into like the entrepreneurship, but not the end of it, the middle way of it.
All right, meaning you don't want to be starting a company, you want to join a startup. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe join like a incubator or a venture capital group or something.
All right, we'll definitely get into that, okay? Yeah, hey, nice to see you.
Hi. User acquisition in mobile and web services.
Mobile and web services, okay. All right, we're going to get into that for sure, okay? All right, Gustavo.
The main things that an entrepreneur has to take in consideration to start a business in San Francisco.
In San Francisco, okay. All right, we'll get into some of that. One or two more, and then I'm going to just kind of jump in, and we'll keep it interactive. Over here. Yes?
You might want to talk about networking.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Can't get a job without networking, right? We're going to talk a little bit about the phantom job posting and what that really means. All right, last one. Yeah? Marketing jobs. Okay, better. Cool, all right. So, we'll keep going, but we'll start with this list for now, okay? So, so this number represents the number of days I travel per year on average, although this year it'll be more like 300, right? And the reason I put this number up is I just get to see a lot of stuff, okay? That's all it means. I see a lot of stuff in a lot of different corners of the world. And I spend a lot of time with entrepreneurs in a lot of different settings, but so a lot of it is pattern recognition, okay? And I'm pretty curious about this stuff. So we're talking about the Bay Area, and I want to make sure we understand the Bay Area is both the city of San Francisco and the whole peninsula, right? All the way down to San Jose. And the Bay Area, the San Francisco area, is very much a media and a marketing-centered place, right? As you get into the peninsula, there's a lot more around technology. There's also a massive cluster of pharma and biotech companies, along with Boston. This is the biotech pharma capital of the country. So there's a lot going on in this very small geographical area. But it all started out as a bunch of peach orchards south of the city. That's what Silicon Valley was. It was the Valley of the Blossoms. And then things started to change, right? So what is this building right here? HP. Which garage? HP. Wake up! So I'm going to test some of your skills a little bit later about Silicon Valley culture, so I'll be throwing candy around. So either pay attention or cover up, all right? So this is quote-unquote the birthplace of Silicon Valley. Oh, I guess I need this? No,
not really.
Talking this doesn't matter?
No.
Okay. Is it ruining the, distorting the sound, or should I turn it off or keep it on?
You can keep it on, but you don't really need it. It's up to you.
Okay, but in a very inauspicious way, in 1938, these two guys went to Stanford, and they had a professor that encouraged them to not go back east and go work for GE and go work for all these, old school, buttoned down, navy blue suit, East Coast establishment companies, but to stay out here and do it the California way. And these two guys, Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard, who I had the privilege of working for out of engineering school for about 4.5 years, set up an operation in Palo Alto, down on the peninsula, and they started making audio oscillators, and they sold one of them to Disney, and Disney used the oscillator to create the movie Fantasia. Many of you are very young and will never have heard of that movie, but Hewlett-Packard won an Academy Award for the technology that was used in that film, and that was the beginning of what we call today Silicon Valley. Okay? And the thing that I don't think a lot of people appreciate about Hewlett and Packard is that it wasn't just technology innovation that they brought to the fore. And I apologize to all my MBAs. I promise this is the only academic slide you'll see tonight. Okay, the only one. But what they did bring was a remarkable shift in the way that companies were managed. So back where I grew up in New York and where I live in Boston, It was a very formal, hierarchical, every executive had their own parking spot, every executive had the key to the washroom, there was an executive dining room, and it was very segregated. You were either in or out. And Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard said, that's not the Western way. We want to have everybody be more equal. Don't care what your family did before you got here. Don't really care where you went to school. All we care about is you work hard and you have ethics. And they created what is a meritocracy or an adhocracy, okay? And although that may not seem very profound to you now, I assure you in 1939 it was anarchy, okay? It was a radical idea, but it has completely swept the globe, okay? And over many, many years, right, so the early technology industry, not surprisingly, was centered around MIT and Harvard in Boston. And so a lot of the early technology companies, like Polaroid, for example, started on what was called Route 128 in Boston. But this really interesting book was written by a woman from Berkeley who had studied at MIT, and she talked about the differences in culture. We've talked a lot about culture in my MBA classes the last couple of days, right? Corporate culture, but regional culture influences it. And what Saxenian concluded was that Boston was very insular, that we had a lot of limitations around the way that information was shared. We had non-compete agreements. We had extremely strict types of contracts that we entered into. People were typically parochial, right? The Boston community came from the Pilgrims and the Puritans. It was a very puritanical culture. And that puritanical culture colored the way that people communicate. And Boston still has certain puritanical roots to it. Silicon Valley was much more open West style. There was a lot more free flow of information. There were not non-competes. And you know what Silicon Valley was able to do was really leapfrog Boston, because it was a community of ideas that was completely open. It was kind of the precursor of open innovation. So Silicon Valley very rapidly blew by Boston to become the epicenter of innovation around the world. And so you see these maps, right? And the thing that's so cool about Silicon Valley is that the density of, you know, world-class innovators is second to none. No matter where you go, everyone always wants to have the next Silicon Valley. It's a very difficult thing to replicate, but an incredibly dense cluster of innovation. But it's not just, again, the products that have come out of Silicon Valley. Many of you have seen Silicon Valley business models, management approaches, philosophies cascade downhill and find their way into many other industries in many different countries around the world. So it's really much more than just innovation around product, technology. It's innovation around how to build businesses. Now, anybody recognize this crew? Who recognizes this crew? Nobody?
Oh, that's the Silicon Valley startups.
All right, Alberto. I'm sorry, buddy. I'll throw it over next time. All right, next time I'll throw it over. I didn't want to hurt anybody. All right, so this is a TV show that I guess if you're Mark Zuckerberg's sister, okay, Mark Zuckerberg's sister's named Randy Zuckerberg, and she created this horrendously low-quality soap opera where she brought in a bunch of posers that have no business being in the startup community, but it's all about the drama between them, right? And to me, if God forbid people actually watch this horrible show on Bravo and they think this is startup culture, it's horrendous, okay? So, there's a lot of jokes about startup culture, right? And some of my MBAs have seen me use this slide before, where there's a lot of people that say we want to be innovative. They just don't want to be really innovative. They just want to pretend that they're being innovative, right? So what would we be if we were a culture where people worked hard but didn't do any of the things that you mentioned, like allow people to dress casually, have flex hours, have value in their work, get stock options, right? And unfortunately, you can't pretend. You're either in or you're out. And that's what I see in so many countries around the world as I travel, is a lot of people say we want to have an entrepreneurial culture, but the founders don't want to share options. They want to own the company. They want to have 100% share of the company. You want to have 100% share of the company, you're missing the point. If you don't share the wealth, it's not a model that's going to work. So there's a lot of different types of approaches, and there's this arms race underway. There's a lot of cultural perks. So let's see who pays attention. So what company has a little robot that drives around in the office, so when the CEO is on the road, you literally, so you can actually see the CEO, you can talk to him. Yeah?
Evernote?
Yes.
Right.
Cool.
Kit Kat.
I only give one candy per person, okay?
Oh, man.
Your dentist would be upset. What company provides treadmills to their employees? Treadmill desks?
Google.
Huh?
Google.
No.
Meta? Is that Meta?
No.
Salesforce.
No.
Holt?
To their professors. Yeah, exactly. All right. One or two more guesses.
Google.
Not Google. Someone said Google.
Gold's Gym.
All right. This one is Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay?
Who said Facebook?
Who said it? Okay, you have to say it loud, okay? Say it loud.
I've seen it before.
Okay, good catch. Awesome. All right, now, how about this one? This is somebody's lunchroom. Pretty cool lunchroom. Looks just like the hot lunchroom, right?
Apple.
No.
Google.
It's a startup. It's a startup.
Zynga.
No. Workday? Workday's not a startup. Workday's public. No? You might not get this one. I bet you all use their products though. I bet almost every one of you has their product on your system today.
Dropbox.
Dropbox. Come on. All right. Now here's a cool one. Rooftop garden.
Twitter.
It's very similar. You know.
Yeah, Twitter's okay. You said Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay. Good catch. All right. They get more crazy as we go. Who has a treehouse for napping? No? You know this company. Who said Airbnb over here? Okay.
Which one?
Airbnb. Good one, Manuel. All right. Who provides nap pods?
Google.
All right.
I share.
You share it. You guys share it. I got enough to go around. You sure? All right. All right. So yeah. So this is the Google version of the nap pod. Cool, huh? When I used to work at companies, if you slept on the job, you got fired. They encourage you to take that. Now, this is a really this is a perfectly acoustic music listening room. Really helps you de-stress. Who's got this thing?
Pandora.
Believe it or not, that's a great guess, but it's not Pandora. No.
Spotify.
Dolby.
Who said Spotify? All right, cool. I'm sorry, guys. Too many answers coming at me at once. Okay, now who's got a one-story sliding board? Anybody got this one? Anybody know? All right, raise your hands. Who knows? Anybody know? Okay. This is YouTube. All right. How could you possibly work all day without taking a couple of slides? Okay, right? I don't know how I ever did it. You know. Now, who's got goats?
IBM.
IBM.
No.
Apple has
Anybody ever seen the movie Borat? Okay, who's got goats?
Apple.
No. Goats. Google. Don't ask me what they intend to do with those goats. I don't want to go there. All right. Now, who's building a very new? All right. You know, I'm going to throw a lot of candy out, but I got more questions later. Right. So this is a part of the way that Silicon Valley defines itself. Okay. There's this incredible need to be fun and hip and cool. And a part of it is very true. They want you to think that when you're at work, you're really not at work. They want you to spend 24 hours a day there. So Google and Facebook give you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They send, if you live here, if you're a young programmer and you live here in San Francisco, they'll send a bus to come pick you up. Nice and early, they'll bring you in, they'll give you breakfast, they'll give you lunch, they'll give you dinner. They'll do your dry cleaning, okay? They'll let you nap there. They will give you massages. Sounds great, until you realize one day you wake up and you haven't left the campus for like 6 months. Wow. And I know it sounds a little silly, but you know, there's a reason why Google and Facebook missed the mobile trend. Because their employees didn't need to use their smartphones as they were trying to navigate. They were completely in this bubble, right? So there's a problem sometimes when you make employees so enmeshed and they're not living in the real world, okay? So we're going to talk about startup culture now, right? And the first thing you have to realize with startup culture, or any Silicon Valley culture, it is a high beta environment, okay? So as we talked about, Mark Zinga was a genius a year ago. And today, Mark Zinga is not necessarily held in the same esteem that he may have been not that long ago. So Mark Pincus is being sued for fiscal irresponsibility. The company, which was literally dependent on Facebook for almost 100% of its revenue, has parted ways with Facebook. So it doesn't take a lot of MBA training to know that you never allow one customer to be 100% of your business. But despite the fact that he did that for a few years, nobody seemed to question it while it was going well. But it's a very simple thing to see. You go from one customer to no customers. And this is a company that's laid off many of their employees, and it's going to be very difficult for them to recover. Okay? Now, what about Yelp? Why did Yelp stock take a hit last week? What happened in the Silicon Valley ecosystem that would cause Yelp to go from this really, well-respected company to people now being a little bit concerned about their longevity?
The graph search for Facebook.
The Facebook graph. So all of a sudden, Facebook is saying, rather than crowdsource from strangers, why don't you just find out how people like restaurants and coffee shops and bars from your friends? So the whole graphing function could theoretically render them irrelevant or less relevant, right? And it's a momentum stock, okay? So when you're entering the world of the startup, you got to know what you're getting into. So for every Facebook, although Facebook has struggled since it went public, or every Apple, that's a black swan event, right? That's like getting a lottery ticket paying off. Okay? More often than not, right, most of these companies do not last very long. So the odds are very specific, right? Very new data. 1 out of 1,000 companies gets VC funds. Okay? That's just getting funded. Of those companies, only 60% last 3 years. Okay? A smaller percentage of them survive. And survive does not mean thrive. Survive does not mean go public. Survive means survive. Okay? Very few of these companies ever become profitable. So, what do you need to know? So, I'm not in any way trying to discourage it. I'm a startup junkie, and I don't think I could ever do anything else. But you got to go in with your eyes wide open, right? That's the point. There should be no confusion about what people who want to do startups are signing up for. And by the way, I will talk about public companies. I'm going to talk about clean tech, med tech, marketing, consulting, banking. But I'm starting off because this is what the Valley is most known for, right? So the first thing you have to recognize is there is a pace that is relentless. Okay, you're all here at HALT. It's a one-year program. I think you're getting used to a certain pace, but this is a pace that never slows down. It literally never slows down. There is never a moment where you can say, you know what, I'm going to take the day or the week and just chill out. Because there are new product announcements and new companies being started every day. So you're either on 100% or you're off. There's no in between, okay? And as Paul Graham loves to say, we don't fire you, the market fires you, right? If the market doesn't believe that your product is relevant, then it's not relevant. And the startup goes away very quickly. So if you're willing to live with that uncertainty, great. Okay? I'm going to tell you the story of a young man that many of you can relate to. He's Antonio. He was a student of mine at MIT. He's a global citizen. He's an Italian that grew up in Latin America. He's married to a German woman. And when I met him, he was at Hewlett-Packard and he wanted to join a startup. And I wound up hiring him. And it was something that I very rarely do. I very rarely have hired someone into a startup that hasn't done at least one startup before. Because you can't, I don't want to be the person where you learn on the job with, okay? Mentorship is one thing in a larger company, but in a startup it's a very different thing to get learned. So we'll talk, because that's part of the question, right? What kind of skills? So it turns out that Antonio was very articulate, he was very hardworking, he was very analytical, but his ability to live with uncertainty was very, very limited. And I protected him far longer than was rational. I probably coached him 10 times, trying to help him understand what I expected, what the board expected of him. And as many times as he nodded, and each coaching session got more specific, got more direct, got more, hardcore. And he kept saying, I get it, I get it. I said, you really get it this time? I get it, and nothing changed. And there came a point where the board asked me to fire him. And it was embarrassing for me because I held on for a long time. And I shared this story, and then what happened with Antonio was, I tried to coach him as he left the company. I said, Antonio, you're just not a startup guy. I know you want to be a startup guy, and I know it's very, exciting to you, and this is something that you think you want to do, but I've gotten to know you very well, and I don't think you're a startup guy. And I would advise you to go back and either be a consultant or work in a mid-sized company, but promise me you're not going to go do a startup. So what do you think he did? He went to another startup, right? And he lasted about 6 months, and he got fired again. And I know the person that hired him, and when the person called me to ask about him, I said, I wish I could tell you it wasn't true, but it was exactly the same issues that I faced. So, so for a poor guy like Antonio, as many times as he tries to fight who he is, he's pushing this rock way uphill. So self-awareness is key, right? You need to know what you stand for and what you don't stand for. It's so important, right? How many of you today know what you want to do when you leave here? How many people are really clear, okay, that you know what you want to do? There's no question, okay? Relatively small person. Now, you're doing it already. Some of you are in the job, but, and it's okay, because it's important that you know what you want to do inside first, right? So that whole self-awareness thing is really critical. And so, yes, you're in San Francisco. Yes, there's a lot of startup culture. Yes, it's very sexy. It's really cool to read about the next founder that cashed out. But be very clear whether that's what you really, truly want to do. Okay? So, let's talk about some trends that I think are important trends that, are trends that are very, very long-term trends that I think will provide long-term opportunities if they happen to be in sectors or in areas that you find interesting. So the first one is, this massive shift to the middle class, right? So in Britain, it took 150 years for a doubling of income of the middle class. In America, in the United States, it took 30 years. In China, it took 4, okay? So there's this massive move toward middle class, right? And with that is this insane need to consume. Many of you are global citizens, and I suspect a lot of you will have the opportunity to represent companies that are trying to deliver middle-class products to China and India, right? Regardless of whether you do it from Silicon Valley or your home country or somewhere else, right? That's the overarching trend that will define the job market that you will be in for the next 10 to 15 years, right? So that's the overarching trend. Now, there's another trend, right? And this is a trend attributed to Mark Andreessen. Mark Andreessen was the guy that wrote the Mosaic browser at the University of Illinois. And the Mosaic browser was the browser that made what you and I know as the World Wide Web the simple tool that it is, right? Before that, you had to be a coder, right? Most of these were defense agency and intelligence agency people. So he made this into this company called Netscape, right? And Netscape really made the World Wide Web accessible for the common person, right? And his quote is very, very clear. Software is eating the world, right? And what he means by that, it is infiltrating everything, okay? Think about all of the things that you have in your possession that have software. How much software is in a car today? How much software is in an appliance? Okay? You look at all of these technology-enabled services like banking, right? You can't go to an ATM machine if it doesn't have software. So software is everywhere, okay? So, but there's a very bleak picture in this country, right? We're only graduating about 10% of the software engineers we need every year. So there's this massive gap. And I'm not telling you that you should go out and become software engineers. But I am telling people like Ravis and others that want to partner with technology founders that it's very difficult to manage a function that you don't understand yourself, okay? It's very easy to be a software person and say, it's going to take me 3 months to get that done, when it's going to be 3 days. So there's this rapid or immersive coding phenomena starting in Silicon Valley, where you can literally go in and in 7 or 8 weeks learn how to program, okay? I will tell you right now that I coded a long time ago, but I'm very seriously considering doing this again, right? Learning how to program in iOS or learning how to program around a different stack. Now, how many of you are programmers in the room? Relatively small number of you, right? It's a skill that regardless of what job you have will serve you well. And there's online courses, but there's these immersive schools. It's an investment in your future. Okay, so the Dev Bootcamp, the App Academy are generic, but then there are other ones for women, which I'll talk about in a second. Now, Google happens to be challenging the iPhone from within, okay? And Google has developed a lot of apps that have become #1 in their category on Apple's iPhone. Now, one of them we all know is Maps, and we know the debacle, but what are some of the other Google apps that they have developed that are sort of the Trojan horse that are going into the iPhone today?
YouTube app.
YouTube app. What else?
Google Play.
Search.
Google Play? No, not yet. Google Play, not yet. Okay, good guess. Yep.
Gmail.
Gmail. What's that? Antonio. All right. What else? What's that? Goggles. Google Translate.
Plus.
Google Chrome. Who said Chrome? Awesome. Google Chrome. Right, they're getting their browser done. All right. Good job. What else?
Plus.
No, not yet. Not yet. Not as big yet. But there's another very clear one that you should know.
Right.
Google Search. Who said Google Search? All right. Right. I mean, it's the default search engine. So all of a sudden, Google has 25 of the top apps on the iPhone. Pretty smart. Okay. So they're kind of going in very quietly, but pretty soon they're going to have a dominant position on the iPhone. Okay? So there's a lot of different apps. Now, for those of you who are women, I want to make sure you get that the tech world is more open to women founders, executives than it's ever been. Okay? These are some women I've mentored in different programs, but they're all CEO leaders. Okay? And it turns out that there are now some immersive coding academies that are only for women. So women don't have to be intimidated by a bunch of geeks, right? That have no social graces anyway. So I don't want to date these guys, so you might as well not hang out with them, right? Because they're Neanderthal, right? So one of them is Girl Develop It. Anybody know this one? No? And another one is called Hackbright. Okay? So for those women who are thinking about starting a company, and I realize that coding may not sound as interesting as marketing or some of that stuff, but if you're going to be in this industry, it's almost impossible not to understand it on some level, right? And the good news is it's much more accessible than ever before. Mobile commerce is huge, okay? And you don't have to believe these numbers, right? They could be off. Forrester could be off by a factor of 10, and it's still a huge opportunity, okay? This is where, I mean, does anybody in this room not have a smartphone, right? I mean, this is, I mean, I don't know if you saw the statistics from Christmas, but the Christmas statistics said that I think about 40% of all e-commerce sales were off of smartphones this year. So it's some insane number, right? So it's really taken off, okay? And we all know Square, right? Everybody knows Square. I mean, that would be, I mean, I don't know how many people would think of them as an interesting company, but to me, this is a company with an incredible future.
It's really amazing. I feel like that at some point, homeless people will have a Square whenever you say, I don't have change.
Yeah, yeah.
you can plug it here.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, obviously the founder is also the founder of Twitter, right? So he's a completely bankable guy. But most taxi drivers have Square, and I think I told the story that I was at the Austin City Limits Musical Festival. It was 2 in the morning. And I was walking around looking for something to eat at a food truck, and a little Japanese woman had an 8-track player that I haven't seen since I was like 8 years old, playing these 8-track tapes, right? And it's like, wow, this is really low tech. And so I'm expecting she's only going to take cash when I pay for my sushi. And she whips out her iPhone and Square, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy, right? An 8-track player and Square in the same place. So to me, this is a massive trend. And Square would be a really cool company. I think this has a long runway, right? EdTech, okay? You guys are an example of the future of learning, right? In the way that you want to learn. And so the Khan Academy is one very small example. Now this is not a technology company per se, but just down the street we have Inkling, right? And there is there's a major EdTech conference in Arizona the week of, we were originally going to do our event when, Jeff? The 20th? So like the 15th to the 18th of April. So if anybody is interested in EdTech, this is the event to go to. It's either Scottsdale or Tucson. It's run by a guy named Michael Moe from GSM Global Advisors. And he has literally a who's who of the leaders in EdTech. Okay? This is a massive trend. It's very bubble-esque, right? There's a lot of, it's been way overfunded. There will be a backlash, but there will be some companies that will change the world out of this category for sure. And of course, big data, right? With my friends from last year in the MDM program, I mean, you guys know big data, right? The amount of information that is being collected that needs to be sorted through and analyzed and used to inform decisions is massive. And so there's this huge landscape of companies, right? A lot of this, like Hadoop, is open source stuff, but you've got your traditional database companies like Oracle and MySQL, which is, was part of Sun that became part of Oracle, IBM, of course. Infrastructure as a service, whether it be Windows, Azure, or Amazon's web services, Teradata, right? I mean, there's an incredible ecosystem. So how many people think big data is an area that you may find interesting? Okay? So for those of you who said you wanted to work in retail, right? Who said retail? Someone said retail?
I said, yeah, just
but literally at the retail level, right? But the amount of data going into e-commerce or even in-store retailing is huge.
I use it for my client. We're the agency for the client. And I was going to ask you, do you have Wildfire by Google in there?
Do I have Wildfire? I don't know, to be honest with you.
It's another one that is now, they're pushing it a lot.
Okay. And
so,
what are you
it's a
using
big data.
For your client? What's your app that you're using for the client?
It's a new thing that it's reasonably cheap, and it's we're testing it. It's a pilot phase, so I don't want to say the name.
All right, that's fine. Okay, but again, this is another massive trend, and you can participate in a startup, in a consultancy, in a media agency, or a lot of very big iconic companies. And there's certainly just as much action on the life sciences side of the equation as there is on the IT side, because they're chasing drug targets, and that means massive amounts of data, right? So this is a huge secular trend. Okay, the sharing economy. Okay, we've got some students in here that are thinking about different business models in the sharing economy. You know what the word Twitter flat means? What's a Twitter flat? You know what Twitter flats are? Twitter flats are these new, literally 500 square foot townhomes, apartments, condos, right? Just enough for like a bed and a dresser, okay? And the Twitter flat is very, very big trend here in San Francisco. It's a big trend in New York. It's a big trend in Montreal, for example. And it's because people of your generation want to live downtown. You want to live with the creative class in the heart of a city. And so the problem is the rent, either the rent or the price of the traditional condo market is so out of touch that people are now creating these tiny little flats. The problem is when you have a 500 square flat, you don't have a lot of room for stuff. So you got to share stuff, okay? So there's a lot of new applications that are being created to allow you guys and ladies to be able to live in a Twitter flat, hang out in downtown San Francisco, commute to work on the peninsula, and still be able to do all the things that you need to do when you had a 2,000 square foot apartment, okay? Obviously the big trend here is Airbnb, right? Now Airbnb raised $112 million recently, okay? So they're here to stay, right? They have really redefined the way people think about looking for rooms, right? And they're now in the hotel market as well. And they rent castles as well as, you know, cots and basements. It's amazing how quickly they got there. Okay? And then the tablet wars, right? So you all have seen, I'm sure, that Dell is about to be basically taken private in an LBO, right? And why is that? Because the PC market is dying. Intel stock is down, and listen, it's a big market. It's not going to go away tomorrow, but it's not a growth market anymore. And so most corporate warriors are using their iPads or their Nexus tablets or their smartphones. And so there needs to be a whole new class of enterprise apps that need to be redirected from a web paradigm or a terminal paradigm down to a tablet in order for them to be useful. So there's going to be a lot of new business-to-business opportunities, again, to take advantage of consumer technology and make it applicable in the world of business. So this is another major, 10-year shift. And then the virtual workforce is huge, right? In some countries, the virtual workforce, Italy, for example, the virtual workforce has been around forever, right? Nobody pays taxes in Italy, right? I think it's illegal to pay taxes in Italy. You know? But there's one really, so how many of you are or were salespeople before you got here? It's a relatively large number of my MBAs that were salespeople, right? The selling function is changing really significantly. And it's changing in a lot of different ways, right? There is a belief that in America there will be 2 million new sales-related positions added in the next 6 or 7 years, okay, including at the retail level, right? But at least 225,000 jobs more considered purchase, wholesale, and manufacturing. Here's the big shift, a 10-to-1 ratio of inside sales to outside sales, right? And when I say that, outside sales used to be nice suit, company car, expense report, or expense account, whining and dining clients. Very expensive. The new sales function is very different. It's an inside job. You use the phone, you use GoToMeeting, you use WebEx, right? You use Skype, and it's a completely different way of selling, okay? It's a technology-enabled way of selling. The important point, of course, is that when you sell direct, the average cost per meeting can be up to $500, where when you do it indirect, it's $25 to $30. So in this very competitive world, companies are trying to reduce the cost of sales, and I have seen companies that have sold literally products with values of hundreds of thousands of dollars online or over the phone without ever meeting the client, right? That may seem preposterous, but I promise you it happens every day. The difference, and this goes to the point about salary, Roman, right? People who are selling inside are earning a very different salary because they're not going through the stress of traveling all the time. So it's a very, very different price point. So for those people that used to love to be salespeople because it generated a lot of cash, this is a very different kind of compensation, okay? What's amazing is that a very significant part of this is virtual, right? At least 15% work from home all the time. At least a third split their time between home and office, okay? So the selling function, I've seen it change in the last 10 years in my startups. It had to. We had open source software. We had to be very, very, very cognizant of the cost of sales. But I'm talking about software that was data center software that was hundreds of thousands of dollars, okay? So like everything else in Silicon Valley first, and it spreads. So it's going to spread everywhere, okay? I'm not going to waste time with a lot of this stuff. I mean, how many people have used TaskRabbit as an example? Anybody used TaskRabbit? What have you used it for? What have you used it for? Medicine. Medicine, or to get people to bring a prescription to your house when you're sick? Very good application. Olga, what about you?
Cleaning services.
Say again?
Cleaning services. Cleaning services,
right? I mean, this is the new world economy. I mean, I read about many companies where, like a group of women will do ghost writing blogging. And they're all over the country, and they'll blog for senior executives whose names you know, right? And the senior executive just says, this is sort of what I want you to say, and they'll write the blog while they're feeding their baby at home, right? So this virtual economy is very real, and it's only getting bigger, okay? Now, so these are some of the trends that I think are massive trends that will affect where opportunities will create, okay? Now, you've also got to be careful of certain things, right? One of them is this cultural difference between poets and engineers. okay? How many people in the room are poets? And what I mean by that is you're more creative, right? You're not really into the technology. You want to be more creative. You want to have more of a marketing, branding affiliation, right? There's a very, very big divide. It's a Venus and Mars discussion, right? So how do you bridge that gap? That's a big one, right? Anytime a show like this pops up, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse cannot be far behind, okay? It is a bubble, right? This is an example, right? There's a bubble that's happening, and we know that, okay? And so what's going on? VCs, the all-important venture capitalists, in their very fickle ways, are becoming very, very picky. Now, what's happened, okay? I know we just had, how many people went to the Chevron presentation before they got here? Okay, what was the big takeaway? What did they have to say?
Well, there's nothing specific.
Yeah.
Expecting the same thing to continue in the future.
What same thing?
The composition of the energy industry.
Okay.
And so they're not looking for a radical revolution. So to stay as it is. So it's incremental change in the market.
Okay. As any oil company would say, yes, exactly. Now, as you guys probably know, when investors chase a new category, they go at it full force until they stop. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, clean tech became the new thing, okay? And every IT investor who got bored with IT investing said, I'm going to become a clean tech expert now. And I'm going to start investing in clean tech companies. How well do you think that went? Not so well, okay? You know, the problem is you can't be a good investor in an industry that you don't have experience in. And one of the big differences is that clean tech has a completely different scale of capital, right? Where a lot of software companies might require 5 million or 50 million, clean tech companies require 500 million, okay? And they have a much longer time of gestation. So I could spend the next hour telling you about all the failed clean tech investments, but I will hold up the poster child as proof, okay? And many of you probably know this has been bandied about in the American presidential election because most people would say that this company was going bankrupt before the US government guaranteed their loans, okay? The problem is when you write off tens of billions of dollars of investments, VCs start to get a little queasy, you know? They start to wonder what's going on. So what we're going to see now is to get clean tech deals funded will take an act of God, okay? Unless it's a really differentiated plan. So I'm not going to tell you to go away from clean tech, but I'm going to tell you that you better be very passionate about what you're doing, right? And there's a lot to be said about investing at the other side of the cycle, okay? So the good news about if you want to start a clean tech company now is there's going to be a lot of great talent available, and if an investor is willing to invest in you, they must really believe in your plan. Yeah, Alberto?
Clean tech, you mean like huge companies or more like Tesla or new technologies?
Well, Tesla's a huge company, right? Tesla's manufacturing automobiles.
Yeah, I mean like energy clean tech.
Yeah, so I'm talking more about alternative energy companies, not oil and gas companies per se. But Tesla, of course, is now on the verge of bankruptcy, right? Because A123, who was their lithium-ion battery supplier, went bankrupt, and and they are in deep trouble right now, right? So it could be anything from large energy management companies, of which there were way too many funded. It's a feeding frenzy, to electric cars, to battery companies, to creating fuel from algae, right? We can go on. There's thousands of these companies that got funded. Many of them are in the process of going bankrupt as we speak, okay? When I say the Series A crunch, what do I mean by the Series A crunch? What's that mean? What is a Series A? Yeah. Alberto, what's a Series A?
Yeah, it's the first, after seed funding is the first series where you actually get huge funds to grow the company.
Yeah, so it's after you've gotten a product market fit. Typically, Series A is growth capital, right? So it's the chance to build your sales force. Here's the problem, right? VCs are incredibly, what's the word? I want to be diplomatic. Gotta be
Don't be.
What's that?
Don't be.
Okay. There's a handful of VCs that are thought leaders and agenda setters, and there's a lot that follow the leader, okay? So the minute that one really cool company starts going, a million VCs want to follow the pack. And so for a while, B2C was the place to be. And as you all see, In every incubator, every accelerator all around the world, how many social companies were there? How many e-commerce companies were there? There were thousands of them. I'm sure you all have friends that started one, right? There's about, today, there's $1 billion of angel capital that was invested in these companies that will wind up being flushed away, because the only way that angel money continues to live is when real venture investors come in behind them to keep the companies funded, right? So if the venture investors say we no longer have confidence in business to consumer as a category, because Amazon has become too much of a juggernaut and eBay has sort of restated its prowess again, all of a sudden a lot of the investors that would be investing to back up this money are going away. They're going to the sidelines. So you're going to see hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of B2C companies disappear like magic. Okay? And about $1 billion of angel capital, this is private money, will be flushed away. And it's going to happen in the next 6 months. Okay? Hey, how you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So, the other thing that you have to recognize is when Facebook went public and LinkedIn went public, you know, there's a lot of companies that would say we're partners with LinkedIn, we're partners with Facebook, and we already saw how that's working out for Zynga, right? It's not working out so well, because all of a sudden, when Facebook and LinkedIn have to be profitable, they no longer want to allow other companies to climb on their platform and make money. They want to create all those margin opportunities themselves. So they're no longer sharing their data with the many, many different firms that were relying on them. So here's just one simple example. BranchOut was using Facebook data and applying some algorithms on top, and they were basically becoming a career site, right? A LinkedIn on top of Facebook. Well, Facebook cut them off. So they're no longer a relevant company. So there's hundreds and hundreds of examples. Zynga being the worst, this being another classic one. Okay, and then Twitter, of course, is getting ready to go public. And so Twitter is already trying to figure out how they are going to monetize their 120 million active users. So there's a whole ecosystem of Twitter follow-on apps like Tweetro that are no longer alive because Twitter decided they wanted to keep all the opportunities themselves, right? So this is the challenge of Silicon Valley. One day it's a great idea, and the next day someone pulls the rug out under you, right? And that's just the nature of the business. So just be clear if you're going to start a startup, right? And how many of you are coming on Saturday to, you know, go to the boot camp event, right? So these are just things I just want you to have in the back of your head as you bring your ideas about the kinds of companies that you want to start and where you think you may be able to build a sustainable long-term business, okay? So this $1 billion flush, it might as well have come from the Bank of Zimbabwe, okay? Anybody ever, I actually had someone send me as a joke gift for board service this exact bill and a piece of lucite. And it's worth the price of the lucite, okay? That's basically what it's worth. Now crowdfunding is really cool, and there are a lot of new projects that are getting funded, but the problem is there are 9,000 websites that will tell you that they will help you find crowdfunding. Does that make anybody a little nervous? It makes me really nervous. So there's no doubt, Kickstarter is a legitimate company. There's a handful of companies like that, like Indiegogo, that are legit. But this is another example of a bubble. So if people are trying to recruit you to their crowdfunding startup, I would be very skeptical. Right? There's still a lot of legal issues. Even though we passed the Jobs Act a year ago, a lot of these legal issues have not been sorted out. So there's a real gap between the promise and the reality of crowdfunding. Okay? The PC market is tough. I won't go there. You know that already, right? So how many of you are really relaxed about finding a job and you're not going to, you know, get all nervous and you realize, right? So I had a chat with somebody earlier, right? There's two ways to approach this. One way is to be very uptight, and the other way is to recognize that it's one of the great learning opportunities of your lifetime, right? It's a process of discovery. You get to go out and meet a lot of interesting people. You get to look into the market and see all this innovation and all of this really remarkable, inspirational stuff, right? And to me, that's the attitude that I would suggest you think about. You know, whenever I would finish with a startup and it was time to sell the company, or we took it public and it was time for us to exit stage right and turn it over to someone else. The most fun I had was thinking about the next opportunity, right? And I realized financially that's not always easy to do. It's easier to say than to do. But the more relaxed you are about this process and the more curious you are, the more you're going to attract things that are aligned with who you are as a person, right? So I encourage you to just treat this as the magical process that it is, right? Many of you have come to this country, you're already fulfilling a dream, right? And you now have a chance to kind of look into a really cool economy. I just hope you do it with the right attitude, right? So the thing that I want you to recognize is, you know, there are these things called phantom job listings. Does anybody know what I mean by a phantom job listing? Yeah.
It's really not listed, it's in the back of someone's head.
Well, it's actually listed, but they've already identified the candidate because they either are legally required or the company policy says that they're required, right? So this speaks to the question about networking. Who asked the networking question, right? So I know that you're very busy with schoolwork and some of you are now working in full-time jobs, but I can't tell you how much time I spent when I was your age at industry events, right? How many hours I would spend getting to know the people in my industry. Now, if that thought sickens you, okay, then you're probably not thinking about the right industry, because you should be excited about getting to know the people in the industry that you want to make your career in, right? And you should hopefully find it to be, you know, an incredibly educational process, right? And to me, it's a real litmus test as to whether you really are aiming in the right direction. So how many people feel like you know an industry association that's very valuable to your long-term career prospects? So what would that be? Give me an example. What would that be?
For me,
yeah.
Here at SFAMA, like I do marketing and advertising.
So the San Francisco American Marketing Association.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's been very, very valuable. And you enjoy the events, the content is interesting, the people are pretty interesting?
Yeah, they are. I haven't been very consistent on when I go, but I do understand that networking is huge. And not only go, but try to volunteer. I run my own networking event, and it's for startups, and it's amazing the amount of people I've met. All those companies you mentioned, I know tons of people working there. It's crazy how much talking with a beer in your hand just opens so many doors.
Right. So Alyssa, you said you want to be a marketer. So that sounds like it would be a great place for you to go. Other places? Women 2.0.
Women 2.0. Promote women entrepreneurs.
Okay. That's great. And where is that held? Down in the peninsula or here in the city?
At markets.
Okay. And is entrepreneur of any flavor?
Any flavor, but women, but then there's a networking event, men could also come.
Okay. Don't say that too loud. These guys might leave right now. Other great events. What other events? Any? Yeah, please, go.
My Toastmasters group?
Yeah, oh, you're a salesman, John. Yeah.
Every Thursday here at 7.
You're upstairs right now, I know.
Right now.
Okay.
Competing.
Okay. Other groups? Yeah, Karthik.
Apex.
Apex, okay.
So, guys, student case competition on 2nd February. $25, so register ASAP. Check me out on Facebook.
You're crazy, yeah.
For you, Women 2.0, there's also Girls in Tech. Check it out.
Check it.
Yeah, Girls in
Karthik, you're killing me. Yeah.
Stanford, so some of you can go down. So it's a great event. It's a venture by MIT and Stanfordites. So it's mostly emerging tech, not just tech, but biotech, nanotech. It's in Stanford GSP. It happens every second Tuesday of the month.
Okay. Anyway, so you guys should be talking to each other about, when you go in there, about different events, okay, that you're finding. So, now let me ask you, Alejandro, we're already way over, okay? So I want to just ask you guys, should we wrap this up and continue at a later time? Okay? Should finish up? Okay, so let me think about what I'm going to put up as my last slide or two here.
Can we go back to the dating show?
Karthik, how old are you, man? You're beyond that now. Yeah, Karthik woke up, guys. Oh my God. It's crazy, Karthik. All right, so let me just say one very quick word about med and, oh, I want to say something about consulting. Can I do that? Because there are a lot of consultants in the room, so I don't want them to leave disappointed, all right? So let me just do that. We can always continue this at a later time. The person who asked about HR, Samira, there's a company called Workday, founded by a guy named Dave Duffield who started PeopleSoft. Just went public. It's a world-class human resources software company here in the Bay Area in a really awesome culture. Dave Duffield's a really class guy. For my marketing friends, very quickly, we have Jive Software. Jive Software recently went public. It's a social media for the way corporations communicate with their clients. Responses, which is an email marketing company, just went public as well. Let's see who else I've got. So Jive. All right. For those of you who don't know there's a lot of old school industrial companies that have set up operating centers in Silicon Valley. They want to be in the valley. They want to actually have a presence in Silicon Valley. So for those of you who think the startup thing is just way too risky, there's a lot of significant companies that have set up design shops and, you know, R&D centers here in town. Okay? So just so we're aware of that, because I realize it's not early stage culture for everybody. All right, so consulting. Okay? So this will be my last few slides, and we'll move to the breakout session, okay? So clearly, innovation consulting. How many people think innovation consulting in an IDEO context would be interesting? Okay? Because and I think a lot of you would, right? You're here for, you know, the innovation cluster. For every IDEO, there's 100 boutiques, and there's probably as many or more in Cambridge around MIT. So yes, you like the Bay Area, but I will tell you that in this specific field, Boston, Cambridge has a significant number of innovation consultancies. What's cool about IDEO is it's not just tech, it's about, you know, financial services, social innovation, branding. I mean, I think it would be an awesome firm to work for, personally. I think it would be an incredible firm. Okay? So M Squared Consulting. Here in the Bay Area, they've got 260 consultants. They do business process outsourcing. They do a lot of project and program management. So it's a class of boutique, one of the larger boutiques in the city. Okay? Alejandro, take it away, man. Talk about Slalom.
Well, Slalom Consulting is the company that I joined 3 years ago when I graduated from the Boston campus, 2009. And it's funny because I bought a book when I was in Module B. I think the title of the book was Top 50 Consulting Firms in the US. Because I knew that coming from Mexico, I knew a few, but not a lot. You know the names of the big guys. Accenture, Deloitte, you know, Pricewaterhouse, Bain, you name 10. You don't know the other 40, and you don't even know the rest.
Right.
So I started to read profiles, and I never read Slalom. And it was funny because when I decided to look for a job in San Francisco and stopped looking for a job in Boston, they called me only 2 weeks later, and they were selling kind of how interesting and good the company was. Alejandro, have you heard of Slalom? Oh, no? So we do this, we do that, and basically the selling points where we don't ask our consultants to travel. If you work for a big guy, you're going to be traveling all the time. Accenture, Deloitte, you name it. You get staffed in San Francisco office. Next week you go to Wichita to live there for 6 months. Or not to live there, but you know, go Monday and come back on Thursday night. Slalom is more about we hire global talent, but we do local consulting. So we only do consulting in the Bay Area for San Francisco-based consultants, and we don't compete in all aspects of technology implementation. We compete in very trendy kind of projects like business intelligence. That is one of the main areas, which is growing a lot and that has a lot of activity in this market in particular. Big data that Mike mentioned. We have a lot of consultants getting to know Hadoop and many other types of software. And even though a lot of consultants are not, technical guys, they end up working in business-related positions in technical related projects.
Right.
So you just need to know a little bit, or maybe not a little bit, but you just need to be able to talk about it. But then you can be the product manager, you can be the project manager, you can be the business analyst.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of activity in the consulting world in the Bay Area, and Slalom was named one of the top 25 best companies to work for in the US, according to one of the websites. There are a lot of companies that do the ranking,
yeah.
But for one of them it was named top 25, so we're doing a pretty good job.
That's
It's
great.
just one example of a company that you don't know and you don't know about.
That's exactly right. That's the important point, right? I mean, you need to go below the surface, right? And so in the world of consultancy, there are literally thousands of boutiques, okay? Thousands of them. And you need to figure out what, so first of all, you got to figure out what type of consulting that you want to do. Because that's a very different kind of consulting than what we just talked about. Then you have this other group, STG, which is truly strategy, okay? They do strategy projects, period, okay? Small firm, of course, because strategy is a fairly narrow niche. Okay, there's about 25 consultants here locally. Now, for my financially minded friends, there's an opportunity to do something which I think could be very interesting that will bring you into contact with private equity people, venture capitalists, and hedge fund managers. So it could be either through a big four firm like KPMG, or here is a New York firm that recently opened up a San Francisco office called Eisner Amper, and they provide accounting services and advice to VC funds, private equity funds, hedge funds, and other alternative investments, okay? So for those of you who have a finance background that you think the venture world is fun, the venture world is going to be very hard, if not impossible, to break into. It's a shrinking industry, okay? There's a lot more money that is being deployed by angel investors. So the thought of you leaving here to become a venture capitalist, quite frankly, is a very, very slim chance, okay? But this is a very cool way to use your accounting or your auditing or your finance background to play in that world, okay? Healthcare investing. First of all, just one big event. For those of you in the medtech healthcare space, there's an event happening called Brilliant Science, Decoding Human Health. That's starting, what's today's date? 24. So started today, but you may be able to, for those of you who have some time, it's an opportunity to go see what's going on in the world of biotech and pharma. And then the last consulting thing, the Triage Consulting Group, which is all around healthcare consulting. Fairly large practice, 275 consultants here in the Bay Area, and they consult to healthcare delivery systems, okay? So just a very small sampling, a few highlights of different boutiques that will allow you to express different parts of what you're learning and what you're interested in, okay? So we covered a lot of the questions. The only last thing I'll say about fit is startups are all about when they see you walk in the door, right? It doesn't matter what your grade point average is. It doesn't matter what you studied. It doesn't really matter too much where you went to school. I joined a startup out of McKinsey, and McKinsey meant nothing in this startup. Meant nothing, okay? What they care about is the experience you bring to the job that you're interviewing for. So if you have great sales or business development experience, okay, and you've sold to customers similar to the customers that they are selling to, they're going to look at you seriously. If you have strong finance background, and it's at a scale, in terms of the scale that they're looking at, they will talk to you. But the whole point of the Silicon Valley culture here is they're looking for people that are committing themselves to this thing 24/7, okay? And the only way you can do that is to really believe in what they're doing and believe in their culture, right? But it's not about your grade point average, the courses you studied, where you went to school. That has nothing, that matters nothing to these people, okay? But real experience doing the job that they're asking you to do matters. So you were, what, an engineer before? Okay. Okay. Right, so I think we're going to wrap up just in the interest of being respectful of everybody's time, but I'll be around and I'm happy to answer some more questions, but I want to let everybody wrap up for the night, okay? All right? Cool.